What about beef? And let's assume whether it's regular beef or grass-fed beef. How about beef in 30 seconds?
Well, it's so notably bad, I don't think we have to labor over that, but once again, when you cook it, you have a carcinogen that is apparent that comes on there, acrylamides that come on there, and the saturated fat issue alone is enough to say no.
I think that the way that we produce that meat is awful. I think the feed for these animals is awful because it's usually GMO corn or soy, things that these animals would never touch if they were out in nature. And we get all these chemicals into us, and a cow would have lived a long life.
For the record, I'll say that I am squarely in the camp of animal rights. If we could get everybody in the United States of America tomorrow to give up dairy and limit their animal food consumption to 2 or 3 servings a week of organic animal food or wild-caught fish, our problem would be over. Wouldn't be enough demand to have a factory farm anywhere. We would not have people sick. I mean, I think none is best. But here's the deal, you guys. We have got to market this to the American public. And one of the things that people say all the time is, I'm so frustrated, nobody will listen to me. Well, I wrote an editorial about this one time and got a lot of controversy about it. And if I overstate my 30 seconds, I promise it won't be by much, but I have to say this. Okay, if we were an organization called Plant-Based Nutrition and we were a for-profit business and we were trying to sell this to the public, and every day we came back to the office and said, nobody will buy what we're selling, how long are you going to blame it on the people you're talking to before you look at what you are talking about? Okay, we have got to find a way to get tens of millions of people to do this. Okay, we have to do that. And I will, my company, to my knowledge, is the biggest company in the world that does what it does. We do this in 35 different countries. We have tens of thousands of people who pay us for information. If we took a harder stance on these issues, it wouldn't be that way, all right? So that's why I keep coming back to, I'm vegan, my friends are vegan, I think it's great, I'm an animal rights activist, but I have to sell this to people to get anything done.
I see them all very similar. I see the meat and the dairy and the chicken, and I mean, they all have very similar nutritional profiles. Of course, I'm always coming from a nutritional standpoint. They all have very similar ethical issues associated with it, and it's completely unnecessary. So I put them all in the same camp. I have clients that say, well, what was the least bad meat if I had to choose one? And so, you can get so nitpicky, but they're really all very similar. And it really isn't, all of these things, this palate for eating more and more of it and having the meat as the center of the plate is the wrong thinking. And we need to change the thinking and show people how delicious plant-based foods are. You don't need that hunk of meat in the center of your plate. And it goes for all the meats. I see them very, very similarly.
All the paleo people are always like, well, they ate meat all the time, and I'm a paleo eater, so I'm going to eat a cow. A cow's not even remotely paleo, all right? It's not even close to what they used to eat, and they didn't eat tons of it. They were not having brontosaurus burgers for lunch and dinner. And so this idea that we should eat like our paleo ancestors eat just takes away this idea that we should be evolving. As everyone has said, we absolutely don't need to eat meat. We don't need leather. We've got fake leather. There's no need for it. And if there's no need for it, why am I going to eat or tell my patients to eat a known carcinogen? So I can't say this about chicken and dairy because it hasn't been done yet, but the World Health Organization has said unequivocally that processed meat is a class 1 carcinogen. And by the way, the other class 1 carcinogens are arsenic, asbestos, plutonium, and tobacco. And so it's on the level with that. And red meat is a class 2A, meaning it's probably a carcinogen. And so there's no way I could tell a patient to eat a carcinogen and feel good about it.
Before we go on, I want to make a statement or a comment. You said a couple of times, and this is a nice panel of people, and I'm happy to be like-minded, that it's extreme to tell people the ethical things. I don't think it's extreme to tell people what's right. No? Let me make a comment. Number 2, I'm happy you have a very successful business. I don't see this as a business. I see this as survival of the human race and survival of the planet Earth. So I take exception to the fact you think it's extreme to tell people the truth.
I think that's not what I'm saying. Not saying it's extreme to tell people the truth. I'm saying that if we can't get people...
Water down the program so more people join the club.
I'm saying that if you can't get people
What that means. Explain what it means to me.
I was actually trying to do that, but I will now do it. What I was saying is that if you can't get people to do it, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. And one point I want to make, I think, I'm not telling people to eat animal food. What I'm basically saying is if you look at populations around the world, the rural Chinese, the northern Africans, they have very low disease rates. They are not eating a vegan diet. So if we're going to really adhere to the science, then we better get ourselves adhering to the science. I'm vegan. I don't talk anybody out of being vegan. But I care about the planet, I care about animals, and the more people we get to reduce their animal food intake, the more people we can get to join the club, the closer we are to achieving our goals. If people don't want to join the club, we have a big problem going on. And that's all I'm saying.
And I gotta say, you know, I get all fired up at these events, and you put me on stage and give me a mic, and I'll go crazy. But there's a big difference when if you've got a population, so people that go to Hippocrates, for instance, are very interested in this, and they're gonna adapt it. But I go into a room, and there's a 6'5", 280-pound, 290-pound cattle rancher, and if I say the word vegan, I've lost this guy forever. He's out. But if I could start talking to him, well, let's see what your diet is. Let's try this instead of that. Let's talk about eating more plants. How can we shift the plate? I'm much more successful, and so I don't get very extreme when I'm meeting with patients, because Pam's absolutely right. You will lose the vast majority of the population. Whereas I would love to say, you know, I would love to slap him in the face and say, for the love of God, you've killed a beautiful animal and you're killing yourself, and this is terrible. But it's just not going to work like that. We're not going to make the changes we need. I don't think it's watered down. I think it's very scientific to say this stuff, and they know I'm vegan, and they know that I'm going to tell them bad stuff about it. But if I go too extreme with them, I lose them. And I've gone through, because when I first learned about this stuff, when I first read the original studies and started doing the science, I was like, for the love of God, the world needs to be vegan right this very second. And like the first patient I saw, I wanted to shake them and say, go vegan right now. But I started losing their interest. They started not listening. But now they listen a lot, because I present science, I give them diet plans that are vegan, but I tell them, look, if you're going to add something in that, it's fine, but it needs to be a side dish here and here. And while that's not ideal, that's the only way in a medical practice you're going to make a difference. I see it on a day-to-day basis.